more activated on the second time because it has had a few weeks to think about it and to make antibodies and to say, okay, that didn't belong here. So the next
Right.
time you introduce it again, it just goes, even more intense and
Yeah.
makes more antibodies. So that
Yeah.
like that double exposure kind of
Right.
increases your immune response. And so a lot of scientists are saying that getting vaccinated will build a stronger immune response because of that reason. And so as far as us knowing how long it'll last, how long we'll be able to maintain it, we don't know.
Mhm.
But we do know that in some vaccinations, um, it'll be decades, like 60, 70 years later after, a vaccination, and people will still have antibodies to it because your immune system continues to circulate, and it keeps the memory. So you have memory B cells that just stay in your body sometimes for even decades and decades, and it just
Yeah.
remembers. And so when that virus decides to come back again, your body remembers that and starts acting right upon that threat.
Right. And just for all the parents out there, I am a mom, so it's kind of like if a kid, got away with something, you're like, oh my goodness, I wasn't prepared for that. And like the next time they try the same thing again, because kids will. And you're like, okay, nope, I know how to handle it. And you kind of like, stop that. And then say they try it again a year later and you're like, oh, I'm prepared for this again. So it kind of just reminds me of that with the whole vaccination and how it works with your system. Um,
For sure. For sure.
so also, if people are if people get vaccinated and then possibly test positive for COVID days later, who should they warn, and should they be vaccinated again? Like, how does that work? Does it, because I know it's not preventing them from getting, the virus or giving it to anyone. Like, a lot of people may think, once I've been vaccinated, so I'm kind of like, free to do whatever, go around whoever without taking
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
precautions. Is that true? I know that's kind
That's
of
a
like a
great
two-part
question.
question.
No, that's a great question. Um, so I will start out by saying that Um, some people will say, "Oh, the vaccine gave me the infection," and so I just want
Mhm.
to clear up that the vaccine itself cannot give you the COVID-19 infection. So if you get vaccinated and then a few days later, um, you know, usually the side effects that you can get from the vaccine are fever, chills, body aches. Those happen between, usually between 12 to 30 hours that you will have these symptoms. However, if days pass and you still, you're feeling sick, you're having fever, runny nose, sore
Mhm.
throat, um, body, just general fatigue, and
Mhm.
difficulty breathing or cough, any of the COVID
Right.
19 symptoms
Right.
that has been happening for way too long, you should really seek, COVID-19 testing, because if you do have the infection, it means that you either got exposed to it before your vaccination, or maybe the day of or the day after you got your vaccination. And so it's important to go ahead and get tested, talk to your, doctor if you have one, go to one of the COVID-19 testing sites and get tested to find out your status. If you are
Mhm.
positive, continue, doing the same thing that everyone has been doing over the last year. Contact your job, if you have one, let them know you can't come in, quarantine
Mhm.
yourself, let everyone around you close to you know, so that you're able to protect them, especially if they're not vaccinated. Um, and just take the proper precautions as far
Right.
as knowing if you can get the second vaccination. Um, that I don't know. You likely will have to wait some time, probably the same CDC 90 days recommendation.
Mhm.
But I don't know of any like clear guidelines now, like if they got the first vaccination and then the other one. And another point to really touch on is,
Mhm.
you have to really wait. You have to give your immune system the right amount of timing before you can actually um, go out there and enjoy life, with knowing that you're vaccinated and feeling that, greater sense of protection.
Mhm.
It takes weeks for your immune system to kick in. So again, you get the first shot. It'll take, 2-3 weeks for your body to, start making the adequate amount of antibodies. And then after you get your second vaccination, the Pfizer one says after that 1 week after your second vaccination, then you should be fully protected. So doing the math, that means in 5 weeks from the first shot to the end of that week after your second shot. So in total, it'll be 5 weeks, close to 40 days until you really are properly, fully vaccinated.
Mhm.
And after that, you can, you know, maybe make brunch plans, feel just
A
go
little more
visit,
secure.
grandma, grandpa more frequently and just feel more secure. But it does take time. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I got my vaccination," and then 3-4 days later, they're in the club, they're doing whatever. It doesn't work like that. We have to have patience and give our immune system the right amount of time so that they're able to put in the work, and that takes weeks again, weeks for them to put in the right amount of work to get the proper level of protection that we want.
Yeah, and I second that. Like I'm going to remain neutral for most of this, but for that, I will say I feel strongly about, because a lot of people, I mean, you have to be honest. There are a lot of people who may feel very lax about, COVID-19 and things like that. So you may have others who, they have like that extra boost of confidence now. Like, I've gotten my vaccination, I'm good to go. Not really hurting anyone. You have to be careful, because I also think about how so many people are asymptomatic, and you may be fine, but I mean, if you have something, and just because your body is fighting it well and you're fine, that does not mean that the next person, their immune system will be as positive, or strong as yours is. So it's just, I don't know, I guess. I mean, I get that we all have to, kind of try to get back to some type of norm, but I don't know, would you say, still, I know you mentioned the time frame and everything like that, but would you say still take, the same precautions that everyone else is, if we're, masking up and, sanitize, and like just try to, like, I would think, just keep those same practices in line. Just that's my opinion. I know
I would
everybody
say
will.
keep, mhm, keep, I would say keep very similar practice and be very conscious that we're still not over the pandemic.
Right.
Um, but I think it's important for people who are vaccinated to also feel like they get to have a reward for getting vaccinated, for doing, the right thing, for getting the whole country, the whole world on the same level of protection. And
Step closer. Yeah.
yeah, and so, if we really, science isn't perfect, and it takes time. I mean, time is the truth holder for everything. And so
Mhm.
we have to say, okay, like, keep avoiding big crowds, and keep wearing your mask, and in these crowded spaces, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I cannot feel, um to me, I cannot tell my friends or family members to continue living their lives like it's May 2020 when it's almost May 2021, and we have had all of these advances in science, um, and all of this, knowledge that we know now that we didn't know a year ago.
Mhm.
And so definitely keep doing the right thing and listen to what the public health efforts are saying from the CDC. They're not always
Mhm.
perfect, but we're trying to get to a place where we can live, the life that we used to know.
Mhm.
And so definitely, you can make plans with your friends and um, do things, but definitely keep doing, the right precautions and just listening to the guidance. And it really doesn't take much sacrifice. So I just hope
Right.
everyone just keeps being aware that the rates of COVID are going down, but it doesn't mean that's a trend that's 100% guaranteed.
Right. That's kind of what I wanted to touch on next as well. I know you may not have, like, I'm not looking for specific data or anything like that from you, but what have you noticed as far as the numbers declining in regards to the vaccination?
Yeah, so we are definitely seeing that in the older patients.
Mhm.
There's a decrease in hospitalization rates for COVID. And so they were the first groups to have gotten vaccinated. And so
Right.
we're seeing that within that age population, they're not getting hospitalized, as frequently as they used to. The
Okay.
COVID rates are going down. I just checked yesterday, and I live in Texas, so Texas within 7 days they've had about 4,000 COVID-19 cases confirmed, which is insanely low given the population and the size of Texas. And
Mhm.
also, when I moved here to Houston in the summer, they were recording 10 to 12,000 daily cases
Yeah.
just in Houston.
I remember
So,
that because I kind of like
yeah,
always looked at the different states, and honestly, I was I know I told you earlier I was considering Texas as a new home and everything, but kind of like in that I was just looking at all the numbers and things like that, and they did have some pretty high numbers, and granted the population is more massive than other states, so understandable, but yeah, so that's a great decline.
for
Um,
sure. For sure. And that's a trend that's happening in almost, the whole country. We're seeing the rates of COVID decrease, and all decrease every, I think, 2 days. Like, it's decreasing in half. So we're seeing the numbers of COVID cases decrease, and we're seeing evidence that the vaccine is working,
mhm.
with the hospitalization rates for the populations that have gotten vaccinated. Same with Israel. Israel is seeing positive outcomes from their vaccination efforts. I mean, they were able to vaccinate. I mean, Israel gets an A+ for how fast they were able to vaccinate everybody, and
Mhm.
so they're seeing that. And then other countries who haven't, their efforts to vaccinate people haven't been as robust, are actually seeing the rates of COVID increase. Like the European Union is seeing an increase in COVID rates, and so France, they started a lockdown a few days ago, so they're going to be on lockdown again.
Oh wow.
Australia did excellent.
Yeah,
They
I
were
was gonna
super
touch on that.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
I've heard a comment, from someone who lives there, and they were just very sympathetic to the fact that we were experiencing what we were here in the U.S.
Mhm.
And I mean, they saw, if at all, little to anything. I mean, I know this has been worldwide, but I'm just curious, how is it that they have managed to avoid, maybe like the tragedies that we've experienced.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's crazy. Yeah, it's funny that you
So,
point that out.
yeah. So I think it's a little bit easier when when you have an island, to you don't have any unions where cars can just, come in and out. So it's a little bit easier
Okay.
to control migration from your island. So I think that's a factor.
Hmm.
And